we are talking Cosmic Dawn. This one is directed and written by Jefferson Maneo and stars Camille Rowe as Aurora. Now this is a science fiction drama, emphasis on the drama because the sci-fi elements here are more in the background, so if you're expecting a full-on sci-fi movie, you may be disappointed with this, although there are some elements that are certainly in play here. Now this focuses on the phenomena of both UFO abductions and kind of cults. Now, there's obviously been thousands of purported UFO abductions across the world, within the last kind of 100 or so years. And we all know that there have been these cults that, indoctrinate people and kind of brainwash them to believe in things. And this movie kind of combines those two kind of elements. So it focuses on Aurora, who we see at the beginning of the movie, whose mother is seemingly abducted by aliens during a kind of camping trip out in the wilderness somewhere, and she's kind of left on her own, and has kind of been brought up after that, somewhat kind of messed up by her, as you can probably expect, taking drugs, things like this. And now she's an adult, and she ends up kind of getting involved with this kind of UFO cult with their kind of charismatic leader. And, it's a case of, as the movie goes on, is Aurora kind of being manipulated, and is she kind of getting indoctrinated into a cult for kind of like nefarious or selfish reasons, or is there some genuine truth to what these people are saying? And are these really people who have experienced or witnessed, as they say, the phenomena of alien abduction and stuff? What'll happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So first of all, let's talk about what I think works in this movie. Big shout out to the soundtrack of this movie. This has some of the best music. I loved it. And actually, in fact, some of the synthy score here reminds me of John Carpenter. It has a John Carpenter style, funk, synthy funk to it, which I really, really enjoyed. They even have an in-universe excuse to have a stop the movie and have a sing-along. Yes, it kind of works within the context of the movie. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that section, to be honest, but I like the fact that they managed to introduce it in a kind of in-universe way that's kind of made sense. But the music I thought was fantastic. And I have to say as well, the movie just feels very, very polished. I mean, the cinematography here is great. I mean, this is not an effects-heavy movie by any stretch of the imagination. But when we do see stuff, I have to say it does have this kind of trippy kind of feel to it that kind of makes you feel like you're expanding your mind. And obviously there is this element which is introduced about kind of taking these drugs and the people in these cults, they're taking these flowers and things like this. And so there is that element, that mind-expanding element there. And I feel the movie does a good job of kind of demonstrating that through the medium of film and kind of getting you to experience it along with our kind of like characters in the movie. And speaking of the characters in the movie, I have to say as well, I thought the acting here was all pretty much top-notch. I think everyone did a good job here. I have some problems with the characterizations, which we'll come on to, but I thought the acting here was all great, and I believed everyone kind of in their roles. Now, I think the other thing to say about the plot, and this, I had some issues with the plot, which we'll come on to, but one thing I did like about it is a slow burn movie. And as I said, it's not a slam bam, thank you ma'am, kind of science fiction action. There's virtually, probably a couple of minutes of actual science fiction stuff in it. But the question that the movie poses is that, is this really happening? Or is this some just crazy people? And I think the movie does an excellent job of kind of balancing your expectations. Kind of one way it's tipping you, oh, maybe they are just nuts, or maybe there is something to it. Obviously at the end of the movie, you'll kind of all be revealed. And I think this is the movie does a good job of really keeping you on a knife edge, and it could be either one until a kind of a certain kind of point in time, which leads me to maybe what doesn't work here. Although I did enjoy the kind of the expectation of the story, I thought some of it was somewhat kind of poorly handled. So we have a situation here where there's multiple kind of timelines, so it's sort of told in a somewhat kind of non-linear fashion. We have bits that are in the future and kind of flashbacks and things. And I have to say, it's sometimes a little kind of like confusing about which ones you're kind of watching. The real issue I had though was the character of Aurora. Although I think she was well acted, I think she comes across as incredibly gullible. To the point where it's hard to understand why any sane human would be agreeing to such things and not kind of getting out of Dodge. Now, clearly people do this because there is real life cults and they get indoctrinated in it. But more work should have been done I think, to show you how she was kind of hooked into this. Because she's just like, she just goes in, there's this back room with a kind of bunch of weirdos. Do you want to come and join them? Yeah, all right then. And it's just like, I don't know, there wasn't enough work here showing the kind of the indoctrination process and how she was kind of hooked into me. It just kind of like, we just have to accept that, yeah, she just kind of more or less kind of goes on with it without really any kind of hesitation. And that to me was, again, it took the kind of the realism out of the movie. And then as the film goes on, I have to say it does drag. That kind of that act 2 of this movie, I didn't really feel like the plot moved forward all that much. Now the plot, to be honest with you, though it's intriguing, it's not a particularly complex plot. But it didn't do much to move the needle in regards to kind of story elements. I felt at times this act 2, the second act, was treading water a lot of the time. But I will say, if you like more of a drama, but with a sort of science fiction element, it's certainly an interesting film. It's not a science fiction film for everyone. I don't think it's necessarily a particularly cerebral science fiction movie, to be honest with you. I mean, people may want to put this against kind of like your 2001s and things like this, but to me, it didn't really have that level of intelligence that I felt that, cerebral sci-fi, like, true kind of science fiction, so to speak, is often kind of lumped in with. This one, to me, it didn't have quite enough depth to me, but it's still an enjoyable film that is well acted and certainly so slickly produced, and certainly an interesting premise. And I think that it benefits from having these kind of these real life parallels. That does make it, an interesting hook at least. More could have been done with it, but I think it's okay. I'll give this one 8.5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.